This week on Pivot with Purpose.
They were giving these influencers money. Sometimes they were being paid $100,000 per video. Sometimes $400,000, right? A week to promote Russian talking points, opposition to the Ukraine war, but in particular.
I will Duolingo some Russian.
Right.
What? I'm just kidding. I won't.
Yeah. And they were looking for Black influencers in particular because Russia came to the conclusion that the African American community was ripe for targeting with disinformation. Their goal is...
What's the goal? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Why?
Create chaos within the United States, because if you maintain instability in the United States, it can't compete with Russia and China as global powers, but also to help their preferred candidates.
Hey friend, you're listening to Pivot with Purpose. This is my show where I pivoted from shit I'm 30, where I was dreading turning 30. I had a failed marriage, failed engagement after that, and I don't have a relationship with my immediate family. But through it all, I came out the other side with a thriving business, an unexpected radio morning show of my own, and a platform where I can reach millions of people and help them walk in their truth. I am now celebrating every step of my journey into continuously finding my purpose, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Sometimes this journey looks like shit, and it probably sounds even worse, but it's still our journey, and I'm learning right along with you to enjoy it. There's always a rainbow after the rain falls. Now, if you need advice in pivoting in any aspect of your life, relationships, career, spirituality, send your questions or story to askcarlawilmaris@gmail.com or shoot me a DM at Carla Wilmaris. Now, let's start the show. Welcome back. We're still here because I can't let him go. Everything happens for a reason. I was actually supposed to be having a different recording right now, but he's hijacked now. Or what is a kidnapper? You're not a kid.
Well,
Adult
you know,
napped.
it can't be a crime if you consent, and there's no place I'd rather be. So
I am so glad. No, seriously, thank you for your time for this. So right now we're going to kind of get into the presidency outside of, we got to, Jesus, words are hard. We had the ground laid out for us as to what our government is, what it's been happening from the past to really who's there right now. So now we ended talking about women presidents, and Vivian looked it up, and it was literally 58 that popped up just in a quick Google search of women that have been president everywhere. So we had Hillary, who lost, and now we had Kamala as VP, and now she's running for president because Sleepy Joe is got to go somewhere and take a nap.
Right.
So let's talk about first maybe one of the main things I hear about Kamala, and it's her as a prosecutor, and that she just put a whole bunch of Black people in jail.
So if I could start up with one thing that I think is incredibly important, you talk about hearing things in the news. So right now, as we speak, over in Tampa, there is a federal criminal case taking place. It involves an organization called Uhuru Movement, or the African Socialist Party. It's a group of African-American radicals and whites. There are 3 people in particular who are on trial, 1 African-American man, 2 whites, and they are radical socialists. The reason they're on trial is because they're alleged to have worked for Russia to spread disinformation to the Black community.
Wait, what?
Yes. So there's something called the Foreign Agents Registration Act. It's a law which says that if you are working on behalf of a foreign country, you have to register with the Department of Justice so people know that. They got indicted last year. They were raided back in 2022. And the reason they were raided was because the FBI, through surveillance, found out that they were working with a Russian man named Alexander Inayov to, on their websites and on YouTube, spread stories that were false to the African-American community. And you're a podcaster, you have a vibrant presence on YouTube. You may have heard about a story that dropped yesterday. There's a story about Russia, again, working with some prominent YouTubers, Dave Rubin, Tim Pool, and a couple of other people. There's a company called Tenet Media out of Tennessee. And they were giving these influencers money. Sometimes they were being paid $100,000 per video. Sometimes $400,000, right? A week to promote Russian talking points, opposition to the Ukraine war, but in particular.
I will Duolingo some Russian.
Right.
What? I'm just kidding. I won't.
And they were looking for Black influencers in particular because Russia came to the conclusion that the African American community was ripe for targeting with disinformation. Their goal is,
what's the goal? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Why?
Create chaos within the United States, because if you maintain instability in the United States, it can't compete with Russia and China as global powers, but also to help their preferred candidates. So in 2016, Russia had a preferred candidate. We know who that was. Same thing in 2020, and now the same thing again.
Wait, who was 2016?
2016, it was Hillary Clinton and Trump.
Okay.
And Russia views Trump as more...
and then 2020 Biden. Okay.
That's right. Russia has always viewed Trump as more Russia-friendly. So you see a lot of things now on the internet, and you wonder, okay, who's behind this? Who's promoting this? And one of the more popular stories that Russia is pushing is that Kamala Harris was a terrible prosecutor who did a lot of things to Black people. And there were actually studies that were done to show that once you get closer to elections, you start to see a lot of fake accounts on Facebook. There was one gentleman who actually used to live here in Florida. He was a white man. He left and moved to Russia. He had at least 200 separate identities across social media platforms. So he would log on, and there's a funny meme now that's on where it shows a white man typing onto a computer, and it says, "As a Black woman, I'm not supporting Kamala."
Oh, yes, yes.
So you never really know who actually is behind that avatar or icon on the screen. So listen, are there some legitimate criticisms to be had of her as a prosecutor when she was in California? Sure, yes. But I think it's important for people to know a couple of facts. For example, there was this fact out there that she prosecuted 1,200 men and put them in jail for nonviolent marijuana offenses. That's not true. That's absolutely not true. Is there any truth to that? So here's what they do. Here's how they take it, right? And then spin it and lie. Most of these men had been arrested for crimes before and then were on probation. And so one of the terms of probation is that you can't get in trouble again. When they got in trouble again, that's a violation of probation, which then results in them going to jail. This is important for people to remember. No person goes to jail in the United States without a judge saying so first. She wasn't putting people in jail. It was the judges who were doing so. But that's too difficult to explain in a 5 or 10 second soundbite. Right. Instead, what you have is you'll have someone saying, you know what I'm saying, man? You know, I'm involved with brothers and I can't vote for her because of what she did by putting these 1,200 in. And that's just not true. Because
the way that I heard it is she was a prosecutor and her people were re-offenders, only re-offenders.
Correct.
So no one came in from working a 9 to 5, being a good father, smoking a little weed and going to jail.
Right. Exactly. And another thing that they don't talk about, which is actually something that I think should be talked about to her credit. At one point, she specialized as a prosecutor in child protection cases.
Yes.
Cases where children were actually being abused. Okay. You know, what's interesting to me, and, you know, I'll try to stick to this, but just think about this for a second. People say, you know what? Well, I'm concerned about her being a prosecutor, right? Because she may have violated the rights of these men. But once you find out that's not true, okay, let's step back. You're not concerned about the man who is perhaps the most prolific scam artist in the history of our country. Let's say if you don't believe that he actually committed the crimes that he was convicted of in New York. Let's not forget that before he decided to get into politics full time, Trump had a scam called Trump University. Okay, you remember that? Trump University basically was like the OG scam university. He played on his image.
Thinking of those ones online. What are their names?
Yes.
Like Everest University.
There you go. That's what he did. What he did is he would appear in these really bad infomercials, and he paid people to say, you know, I was making only $20,000, but then I went to Trump University and I took some online courses, and now I'm bringing in 6 figures a week. And people were paying these predatory fees for these useless classes. Yes, and it is exactly because you have to.
People are still doing it today.
Still doing it today, and he was in on the hustle to the point where eventually, right, he got shut down by a number of state attorneys general who said, "Listen, you can't do this anymore because this is violating state and federal law."
And did it say really small paid actors?
That's it. Testimonials are not from actual people, but from paid actors
But
reflecting.
people aren't listening to that.
No, they're not, because all they're thinking is, oh, hey, that's Trump, right? The thing that Donald Trump, the bet that he has made, which unfortunately has paid off, it paid off until 2020. Then he started losing. Never underestimate the ability and willingness of people to listen to celebrities and give them tons of money. Mm-hmm. That's it. Never forget what he said. I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue, my supporters would still vote for me. So back to the idea that she was a terrible prosecutor and that's why you shouldn't vote for her. Well, think about it this way. If you disagree with some of the actions that she took as a prosecutor, what does that have to do with affordability of healthcare, affordability of food, various programs? I think it has nothing to do with that. And I think, I'm just going to be very honest as a man, a lot of us as men don't want to have a woman in charge. And so we launder that sexism through certain criticisms, like the phony one that she was a bad prosecutor, when the evidence just doesn't support that.
So then where does she stand with healthcare per se? All right, because healthcare had nothing to do with her being a prosecutor.
So the most revolutionary political act, I'd say, in the past 10, 15 years in American society, the Affordable Care Act.
Yes.
Right?
You're just screwing me over right now.
And here's the thing. The Affordable Care Act, let's not forget, Republicans now say, hey, we like it, we support it, but they literally spent years trying to defund it.
It was Obamacare first.
Exactly. And notice when they started to see that it was becoming popular with the American people, it moved from Obamacare to being the Affordable Care Act. Here's what I'll say to those who are thinking about this healthcare issue. If you go to her website, you'll see that her plans are to do certain things to expand the protections under the Affordable Care Act and make it more affordable, not to restrict it or defund it. Donald Trump was president for 4 years. I will give $1,000 to any listener who can provide me with the healthcare plan that he came up with. This is a personal offer to anyone watching this. If you can provide me with the actual healthcare plan.
It's like a stimulus check right here.
There you go. And I'm not worried about losing the $1,000 because I know that he actually never did it. In 2020, he said that he would present his healthcare plan in 2 weeks. 2 weeks now has expanded to almost 4 years and he still hasn't presented it.
And he's running again and he still doesn't have one.
In his last public answer with regard to healthcare, here's what he said. He goes, the Affordable Care Act, we'll keep it unless we can come up with something better. That's absolute nonsense. There's been a lot of criticism of her about, she's not doing interviews, she's not answering questions. I'd like to flag this for your listeners, and I don't know if you saw this yesterday. Donald Trump gave a speech to the New York Economic Club, and he was thrown off by one question. It was the last question.
I think I saw this.
It was presented by the only woman who was on the panel, and it was a question about what he was going to do
with
affordability of childcare. And he sounded like he'd been drugged or doped up. This is why I say it is important sometimes that she is a woman or that you have certain experiences, because listen, the history of America is men saying, y'all worry about that. We're going to go and work from 9 to 5 and then go get the 2 martinis afterwards while you're the ones at home dealing with these issues, right? Childcare, the reason he stumbled is because as a wealthy man, he's never had to think about it. His entire life, he's had people taking care of those things for him. And this is why I would say, remember, you're not voting for one individual. You're voting for a team. The president will bring in an administration, literally thousands of people. Thousands of people. I mean, listen, do people think the president gets up each day and says, okay, how's the Department of Defense going? And no, of course not. They bring in staff. They have cabinet secretaries. They bring people in with them.
How do they choose those people?
And that's the thing.
They friends?
Well, I'm going to give you an example, okay? I don't want to take up too much time, but this is why I say, to me, Donald Trump, the reason, beyond politics and policy, he's just not competent. He's just not competent, and I'll tell you why and how it can have really deadly consequences. When he won in 2016, okay, Chris Christie, former governor of New Jersey, who was running against him, he picked Chris Christie to do the transition. Now, by law, if you win, you have to set up a transition team. The transition team hires these people and brings people in to run the government, right? It's not just one man or woman in the White House. You literally have to fill anywhere from about 4,000 to 7,000 jobs, important critical jobs in the government. Yes. What? And you have a short period of time to do that.
How long?
Well, you win election in November, you take office in January. And
3 months to
that's
hire
right.
4,000 to 7,000
There you
people?
go. And think about holidays and so forth. So
And
it's really
none of these people are appointed. They're
No.
hired personally.
Some of them are appointed. Like, for example, some positions are the people that you'll nominate for cabinet positions, right? But others are what you call SES, Senior Executive Service appointments, right? And just basically filling your administration. And I give you an example of how he didn't care and the consequences that it had for the American people. So when he appointed Christie to be the transition leader, Christie said, hey, we need to meet so we can talk about these things. And Trump's like, you know what? The two of us, we can do it. I can pick all these people. And Christie said, no, we actually have to meet. And Trump said, why? He goes, because the law says we have to have meetings. We have to appoint people and we have to do this way. And Trump was like, okay, fine, whatever. The other thing the transition law requires you to do is to meet with the incoming administration and have briefings with them about certain things. Well, there was a briefing that the Obama administration, because it seems like such a long time ago because it was, but remember, he was taking over from President Obama's administration. President Obama's cabinet, and specifically one cabinet department, scheduled a meeting with Trump's people who were going to fill this cabinet department. And there was a topic. They said, listen, you need to show up for this meeting. We're going to prepare briefing books. We'll send these briefing books to you. We want you to read them and be prepared for the meeting. The Trump people, most of them didn't show up. Those who did show up were late. And it was clear to the Obama people in the meeting that the Trump people had not read the briefing books and didn't know what the subject was. The topic was U.S. response to a global pandemic. Yes. Documented case. There's a book by Michael Lewis. It's called The Fifth Risk. And he wrote the book about that. And he details that specifically. And he says, look, here's a problem. When you elect people who don't care about government and don't pay attention, this is what happens. They never went to that briefing. And then, of course, what happens in 2020? We're struck by a pandemic. We have a really inefficient government response to it, and 1 million plus people, when all is said and done, who die from it. This matters, okay? And the reason I say it matters is because you know this. If you're a professional woman, you don't have the luxury of being less than competent, right? We're always told, got to be twice as good,
if not
just
more,
to be considered maybe close to being equal, okay? Right. I would say that to get to where she is now, and this is important for people to understand. Look, let's keep it real. There's another slur that they hurl against her, which is she slept her way to the top. It's such an offensive thing, but it's also practically stupid for a couple of reasons. Number one, she ran for local district attorney. She then ran for district attorney again. She then ran to be the attorney general for the state of California. Okay. And then she ran for the Senate. Now, unless she slept with the millions of people who voted for her in every election, there's no way.
All voted by people. There's no, she's not appointed.
Exactly. But I mean, for me, the one great thing about this election.
I mean, if she did, sook it with the good, we better watch out. Because Kamala got you. So
exactly.
There's no way.
And that's my point, is that this
How
election.
What can you really do?
This election is really revealing people who are incredibly sexist. And I always say, I tell my kids as a rule of thumb, what you're saying publicly is usually 1,000 times worse when it's being said privately. Okay. And really, as we get closer to the election, it is going to come down to this fundamental question. It's not really, is she the one? It's more so, do we want a woman? And there's still an incredible amount of sexism in America within a lot of communities. And I'm also going to keep it real too, within the African-American community and the Hispanic community.
It's definitely
patriarchy. And the Republicans have really picked up on this. For years now, they've had a concerted effort to target and promote the manosphere, the whole man of value thing, and, you know, trad wives and all of this stuff. You know, this whole idea and notion of society is ordered when men are in charge, right?
It's in disarray. There was something you said that is, oh my God, it was just in my mind. It was the healthcare thing. You said it was in her website. She has a plan and all this stuff, and she was planning on bringing it down. My concern is that my tax bracket went up a little bit, and just a tiny bit. But I see where I'm being like screwed in some ways. So in order to lower the healthcare, which I'm already struggling to get, because I guess technically I would still be middle class. I think I'm still middle class for sure. how is that going to affect us? Where does the money come from in order to lower it?
Exactly. So let me take it back to something. Remember the childcare tax credit?
Yes.
Right. We had that for a period of time, and then it just kind of like disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It went away.
Well, I don't know. By that time, I didn't.
Right.
Taxes were different.
Exactly. But there's a renewed discussion about this now. Okay. And the reason that the discussion is back on the table is because there was a period of time between stimulus checks and the childcare tax credit. It was a bit easier for the average American who had children. I grew up in Germany. In Germany, we had something called Kindergeld. It's money that's given to families. And the theory is, look, rather than you having to depend on us, we're just going to give you the money and trust that parents can use it responsibly. There are a number of people, but most parents do, right? Most parents
I don't know. I just feel like sometimes when, like the stimulus check, people use it to go to Louis Vuitton.
Right. Some people did, no doubt about it. But for the most part, I know a lot of people who were like, oh my God, finally, I'm no longer juggling and doing things day to day.
We probably just see more on social media of the BS versus what was actually done.
Exactly. But with regard to healthcare, for example, what I would encourage people to do is if you actually do go to her website, she has a really good section. You can literally click on it and you'll see their videos and position papers. And this is why I tell people it's important. Look at the people who are actually a part of helping her formulate policy. What did they do before? What are their backgrounds? And you'll find that there are serious people who are part of her team who understand the interrelationship between these things. Like, for example, I'm making more money. What is that going to mean with regard to healthcare or so forth? Again, I think that there's one very simple solution to this. And I think that she will do it once she gets to the point where she can do it. A single payer system, Medicare for all. You've probably heard about that, right? Yeah. Medicare for all is the healthcare program that members of Congress have. We are incrementally getting to where I think we should be as a society, which is to have a single payer system like we had in the military. The problem is that the influence of big pharma, health insurance companies, right? They kept saying, oh, we can't do this. We can't do this. Well, why not? Because when people talk about healthcare, what people are really talking about is not actually healthcare in the traditional sense, because that's the quality of your doctor, the quality of medicine. What people are talking about is going back to what you're talking about, affordability and coverage, right? And what I like about her is if you go back and you look at her time in California, right? She brought a lot of prosecutions against, for example, health insurance companies, civil suits that were not paying out benefits as promised, prosecuting healthcare companies and officials for fraud. That's one of the things that really isn't focused in on. And so, with regard to your specific situation, I think what you'll see is that she has a list of proposals to make the world more affordable for people who are middle class but not wealthy. Because to me, wealth simply means you no longer worry about bills. That's my definition of wealth. In other words, the bills that come in for things like a mortgage, for health insurance, hey, I've got enough to be able to take care of that. To me, being middle class means you don't. And so you're constantly thinking of ways to make extra money, to try to get things cheaper, right?
That's middle.
The paycheck to working class people are struggling significantly. That's right. They're significantly struggling. And here's why, another example, right, of why I think that she is the one and a better candidate. Most working class people, what little protections they do have, what benefits they get, are the result of what? Unions and the labor movement. There's a reason why the UAW and most labor unions have endorsed her and before had endorsed Biden, because, in particular, there's something called the National Labor Relations Board, the NLRB, which deals with issues, disputes between workers and bosses. Do you know who is considered to have the most vibrant NLRB in like 40 years? The Biden administration. Do you know who is considered to be the worst? Trump, right? For the most part, the reason why most unions support her is because they've seen the progress that has been made with union protections or so forth. Even something just as concrete, for example, like you talked about healthcare, right? Trump had an executive order for $35 insulin, but it was a temporary executive order. It wasn't put into law, and it still didn't allow the federal government to negotiate drug prices. Okay? It was the Biden administration that changed that said, hey, we're now going to make this the case. This is not something that is going to go away. It's going to be permanent unless there's a superseding executive order that revokes it. And on top of that, what they've done is they've said for veterans and others, sorry, if you're going to be giving prescription drugs to the government, you're not going to be charging these crazy prices. That's not going to happen. Now, let's be clear. The Democratic Party still has, unfortunately, elements that are influenced by wealthy people, right? It's a donor class party too. But if you just look objectively, point by point, there are a number of things that are done that actually help middle class people. For me, I was going to support her, but the thing that really made me positive with regard to supporting her was the vice presidential nominee that she picked. Tim Walz. I like him a lot.
Coach Walz.
Yep, and I'll tell you why. He did something that shouldn't be controversial or revolutionary now, but it still is. Universal breakfast and lunch for all school children. Okay?
Wow. Oh, he's from Minnesota?
That's right. Yep. Here's what he said. He's like, look, you have some families that are considered to be too well off to get it. They want it, so what do they have to do? They have to fill out the paperwork. They have to attach the W-2s and all of that. And he said, no, to hell with that. What I like about their administration is they're promoting this notion of universal programs to say it's a good thing for there not to be distinctions in school, right? You don't want to have some kids say, oh, hey, look, that's the free lunch or free breakfast kid. Kids can be cruel. They tease each other a lot.
What is the opposition to that?
Well, I can tell you exactly what the opposition is.
Why would literally, the question is, why would any human being say, I don't want children to be equal and to all have food at school?
Exactly. Now, there's some, I call them troglodytes, people who just have crazy ideas, who say it's going to lead to communism because you're teaching kids to have free things. That actually was an element of the debate when he was trying to get that bill through. Republicans in Minnesota were saying it's the first step to communism. It's silly. It makes no sense. Another example, though, of why I think they were opposed to it is this. If you have universal programs where you don't have distinctions, what do you start to then break down? Class divisions. Kids no longer say, hey, those are the free breakfast kids. Those are the free lunch kids. What do they start doing? They start coming together.
And we don't want that.
There's some people who don't. There's some people who don't. Why do you think?
And they outwardly say, I don't want my kids with those kids.
Why has there been? Now, will they outwardly say it? But let me give you an example. Why do you think there was such an increase, an explosion in private school attendance, in homeschooling, and religious schools after school integration started?
To still segregate.
There you go. There you go. You know, listen, why do we still have Division Avenue? You know why we have Division Avenue. Do you know why it's called Division Avenue?
I always wonder why it has a little loop-de-loop, but I know it's right through that railroad track, which one side, it's kind of hood.
It's called Division Avenue because it was put up during the era of segregation, and it let you know where blacks beyond that could not get homes. People have been, that's right, Division Avenue, you go to a lot of states in the South, and wherever there was your Division Avenue or your Division Road, that was a way of letting you know, wait a minute, there's a black person above Division, you need to get back on your side of town.
Wow.
Right? People have been trying to rename Division Avenue for quite some time.
And it won't happen?
It won't happen because you still have, I say, don't pay attention to what a lot of people say. Pay attention to what they do. Pay attention to what they do. So, you know, back to, I guess, really your fundamental question that started this off.
I'm glad you remember because
it was about healthcare.
Yes.
You know, Trump said, I want to do something about healthcare, but didn't introduce any plans to do so. The Biden administration added things to the Affordable Care Act, put in more things to offer in terms of coverage, more controls. Are we where we should be in this society with regard to healthcare? No, absolutely not. But it's no coincidence that it didn't happen until you had a Democratic administration. And I also think, too, it's no coincidence that it happened when you had a president who knew what it was like to grow up with a single mother who was struggling with a health issue. Remember, his mother dealt with cancer. And so he knew about this. And I think there's something about her personal background, her experiences. She's not from a wealthy family. Let's not forget, Donald Trump started on third base. I would love to be able to be in my 20s and have my dad give me $400,000 and say, here you go. And then keep losing it over and over and over again. Empathy is something that I look for in the people who I want to be in charge. And she's not from a wealthy family, right? She was middle class.
I mean, they were professionals.
They were professionals, absolutely. But
she
not
built her way there.
Exactly. And she's moved up. So now, I mean, is she well off economically? Of course. as a result of being the attorney general and all that and practicing law. She did. But I think a lot of our values are formed early on.
Mm-hmm.
And even though your economic situation may change, I don't know if her values
Right.
changed. So with regard to healthcare, I think that on balance, she's going to be better. And I would just tell people, just remember this one thing with the childcare thing too, how we talked about that. JD Vance, who's the VP.
Ooh, terrible.
He was asked this week, what is the Republican position on childcare? And he said, grandma and grandpa need to help out.
Okay. No, he didn't.
He did.
Clayson, please find that clip.
He did. He sure did. And I'll tell you another thing that he said too, and you'll find this, 58 was a number that we just talked about. I can guarantee you that there are at least more than 58 clips with JD Vance saying something that I think
he said some wild things.
He said some wild things, exactly. And to me, really your first sort of introduction to the American people about how you will govern is who you want to be the person who could take the job if you have a heart attack and you get assassinated. Trump picked a man who said women who don't have kids really don't matter as much. That's what he said repeatedly. He's basically said that, yeah, childless cat ladies are unhappy and really should not have the same value. He's even said, for example, that you should get more votes if you have kids. Now, okay, he said something the other day. He said, listen, I can't.
You better watch out now because the hood is full of kids.
Well, I mean, here's something, and Lawrence O'Donnell on MSNBC made this excellent point. He said, listen, JD Vance keeps basically trying to say that women who don't have kids don't contribute anything to society. Well, that's going to come as news to the literally hundreds of thousands of nuns in America who have contributed so many things to children, even though they don't have children.
I mean, women that just are unable medically to have kids, period, but want kids. It's like it wasn't their choice. Someone who got in a car accident and their womb was messed up. Someone that has some type of deformity. Like there's so many different reasons why you can't. You had a child, you lost your child, and now you're unable to have kids. There's so many women that should still have the same vote as someone who was able to bear a child and I can't get child support.
Right. And notice what's significant about that? It's constantly talking about women who don't have kids, saying absolutely nothing at all about men who decide, hey, I'm just going to be a bachelor.
What about the ones that don't take care of their kids? Is there anything in the Constitution of the United States of America that can do something to the men that are purposely staying out of work and not taking care financially of their children? Is there anything?
There are a number of things that can be done. And one thing I will say, for example, when she was the Attorney General of California, they did a lot of really good things, very creative things with regard to child support, for example, in terms of collections and trying to make it easier. Like, for example, one program I know that they did, a lot of times it's shaming people, okay? A lot of guys,
put your face on it.
Putting it newspapers, websites, things of that nature. Listen, the child support issue is a difficult one. I think it's more so really an issue that's, at the state and local level. It's not really a responsibility, I think, of the, president or the federal government.
Because the president came out and say, all those deadbeats are going to be on the Shade Room. And they're going to be on NBC and on ABC running at 7 o'clock. You remember how America's Most Wanted? We needed America's most biggest deadbeat. And all the deadbeats from 7 to 8 p.m. just rolling face after face. And we would all sit there Monday through Sunday at 7 o'clock right. Who is part of that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
This is great. Somebody should pick that up.
Yeah. No, listen, one thing you need to have, I think, a team of lawyers. Just like, for example, most people are not going to commit crimes and so therefore aren't going to need public defenders. I think a lot of people women need advocates like their own lawyers to help them with it. Yeah.
If someone would just file this paperwork for me, please, and not charge me $5,000 because I already know he ain't got a job. Yeah. So if he has no money, he ain't got no job, I'm not going to get anything from him, but I still think that he should be held accountable.
100%. 100%.
It's not about the money. I don't need the money, but you should be held accountable just like if you committed any other crime. 100%.
Because what ends up happening is it creates a culture of a lack of accountability where guys are like, well, I don't have to pay because look, I see all these other guys who aren't making it. Yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah,
that's not fair. Now, in regards to Trump and voting and a lot of people saying, I can't vote. I have a lot of, not a lot, but I see a lot of people that can't vote because they're felons. Trump is a felon. How can you run for presidency? Now, when it's time November 5th, does the president vote? The one that's running for president. So does Kamala go into a booth and vote?
Yeah, they vote for themselves.
So November 5th, this felon will be allowed to go into a booth to vote?
So very interesting thing. And I encourage you, since you have your capable, amazing person here, to find this clip. Ron DeSantis stated that he will make certain, no matter what he has to do here in Florida, that Trump is able to vote in the November elections. So there's really two separate issues here, right? So
How?
So let's deal with the first issue, which is how can he vote? So as a result of being a felon, most people would think, well, he should lose his right to vote, right?
Right.
And the answer is it all depends on what the law is in your particular state. So now, traditionally, yes, if you're an adjudicated felon, then you lose the right to vote. However, the governor of that state has the authority to be able to restore voting rights. And
Come
so what Ron
on.
DeSantis has already said is that Ron DeSantis, he actually, with no shame, in an interview said that he will fast track it to ensure that Trump is allowed to vote, which he has
So
the
he
authority.
could technically allow all felons to vote.
He could if he wanted to, but he'll only do it for his daddy, Trump, and he's not doing it for everybody else.
That's insane.
I know. Now, with regard to the issue concerning a felon being president, the founders never envisioned, ever, that we as a people would ever put a felon in that position. So that's why
There's no president.
there's nothing that prohibits someone who's even serving a prison term from being president.
So he can be in prison and be the president. I did see that and I was like, that can't be true. So it's true.
It's true. There's a guy named Eugene V. Debs back in the 1920s. He was a socialist politician, socialist agitator.
Mhm.
He was serving time in prison and ran for and was on the ballot to be
Come
president.
on.
Yes. And had he won, he would. So here is the nightmare. Here's the nightmare scenario. Now, it's not likely to happen,
But it can't.
but here's the nightmare scenario that could happen. Trump could win
Mm-hmm.
and then be sentenced by the judge in New York who just oversaw the case where he got 34 felonies.
Mm-hmm.
That judge could sentence him to prison because it is a state case. Trump cannot pardon himself. And so we could have someone being sworn into office, but then also having an ankle monitor or being on house arrest or actually serving a prison term.
So he can do the whole Bible thing from inside cell block 3.
He could literally be meeting with his cabinet via Zoom while he has on his jumpsuits. Yep. That could happen. And another thing too.
It is like a video game. It's literally like we're on. This is Tubi.
He is the most toxic presence in American politics because things that we never would have thought about, he's brought to the fore. So yeah. So just to answer that question, no prohibition. It's just not in the Constitution. A felon can run for and be elected and serve as president. Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, there was one more thing. It feels like a joke.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it feels like a joke. It feels like I'm living inside of like I said, a video game or a movie or a TV show that somebody scripted because it can't be real. And I feel like we watch things, and I talked about it on another episode. I don't know who it was with. Things that are happening in Venezuela. Yes. And things that are happening in Israel, even Gaza. And we think we're so far removed from that because this is America. But the more that we really start reading into what's happening behind the scenes, we're not that far away.
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
Especially from Venezuela.
Listen, here in Central Florida, with the significant Venezuelan population that we have, it obviously has an impact on us. And I guess sort of to tie it back, you know how sometimes you say, hey, it feels like it's a play, or I feel like I'm in the Matrix to a certain extent. I think part of that is because, let's just be very honest, the average American is disengaged from politics. Yes. Really are. There are several things that I think people need to do in order to be fully engaged citizens. Now, it's tough things, but here we go. Number one, do you go to the meetings of your local governing bodies? Most people don't.
Because we have to make money to live.
Well, but here's the thing.
You can do it on
For
Zoom.
Example, well, there you go. That's number one. You can attend virtually. Real? Yes, you can. Many places now, because of that concern, started televising them via Zoom.
So we could be driving or at work and in the meeting.
Well, the second thing is, that's why now a lot of planning commission meetings or various meetings take place after 5 o'clock so that people can go. Okay. So that's number one. So people need to get engaged in their local government. You may remember a couple of years ago, there was a big controversy over this issue. Teaching kids in Florida that slavery had certain benefits for slaves, right?
Yeah. What was that?
Well, that never would have happened if more people realized, hey, I'm voting for school board. Who exactly is this person? Have you ever heard of the group Moms for Liberty, for example?
Moms for Liberty, no.
Okay, Moms for Liberty is the most powerful nonprofit group in Florida. It's a group of women. It's founded in 2020. It's a 501c3 organization. And they started the group.
They don't pay taxes.
Exactly. They started the group because they were concerned about two things. They were concerned about lessons concerning race and gay rights in schools and masking during COVID.
So they're white?
Yeah, for the most part.
Okay.
Just two women who had served themselves on school boards who said, you know what? We know how this stuff works. We're going to put together the paperwork for the 501c3. In 2020, they formed their organization. Last week, they're such a powerful organization now. They have chapters in all 50 states. And guess who spoke to their gathered membership? Donald Trump. Ron DeSantis spoke as well when he was running for president. Just two women in Brevard County.
How many women are there now?
Oh gosh, they have a national membership that's close to maybe about 700,000. Right, people, dues paying members. These are just two ladies who said, you know what, we're going to start this group. And they did. If there's one message that I want to give to people watching this, and to you too as well, and I'm going to challenge you a little bit. I'm going to ask you a question here.
I like to do, don't bring me any ideas.
No. Here we go.
Because I like to overextend myself and then try to do some stuff.
You're a great communicator.
Ay.
You're an influencer.
Ay.
You're a leader.
I'm scared.
And you know the impact that policies have had on you personally. And the question I have for you is, why not you running for some office?
Because I ain't got no more time.
And I'm going to tell you, you know who said that? She said this, I don't think I have time. And she went from being a bartender to now perhaps the most powerful Democrat in the United States.
Who?
AOC.
I like her a little bit. But does she make any money?
Well, so she makes a lot of money. Listen, one thing about being in Congress, they make a lot of money. Most of those people get in. Oh, let's just say this.
Because she's still living in the Bronx. I think that's optics, though.
Right. Well, she's now a millionaire. So in a short term, she went from being a bartender to a millionaire.
The other day she started.
I'm sorry?
She just started the other day.
That's what I'm saying. And you know why? Because here's what happens. A lot of them, let's just say they have savvy investors. And they get access to a lot of information ahead of time. And they seem to always beat the stock market. But, at one point, she was just viewed as a bartender. And now, chances are, she's probably going to have a prominent cabinet position.
Wow.
If VP Harris wins. And what I'm saying is, I could see you, with all the qualities you have, being on city council or county commission. For example, you want to do something about the child support process, right?
Yes.
Do you know who sets the laws for that? The Florida State Legislature. Why have you never thought about running for office for the Florida House?
I think when I think
so
of
I'm going to knock down
politics,
all the excuses. I'm going to knock down all the excuses.
No. I was going to say, I think that I've always viewed it as something like people view podcasting. Do I even get on Spotify? Spotify is like...
Mm-hmm. And look where you are now. And here's my point. The same way that you've done this and you do it so brilliantly, there's no reason why you couldn't be considered for the Florida House or the Senate or the governorship. You present well, you're smart, charming, but more importantly, you care.
How many hours do I got to work?
So it's part-time if you're in the Florida legislature, right? It only meets for a period of time and then they leave. So it's not a full-time job, but you could be literally in committee meetings. Imagine, what if someone said to you, you're sitting at a committee meeting and the guy says, all right, the next topic is child support, but I think the system's okay. We really don't need to change it, do we?
I wish you would.
What would you tell him?
It's messed up. Can you cuss?
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Because I know that lady cussed. Okay, I'd be like, you fucking wrong.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
So how do we need to change it? I mean, tell me how you need to change it.
Okay, well, we need to, first, it can be every 45 days sending a letter to an address that is not there. Send out, with the servers, to an address. Every day, you're going to send someone and you're going to find them within 30 days.
There you go.
If not, a warrant goes, we should be able to find, if they're not in prison, we need to be able to find them.
Now, I'm going to show you exactly what would happen. So, ladies and gentlemen, news tonight in the Florida legislature where Carla, the famous podcaster, now a member of the Florida House, in very plain terms, put some opponents on blast and let them know about needed changes to child support. Let's go live now to Tallahassee. Our reporter on the scene, and she's making inroads and sparks already, ladies and gentlemen. Look at this fantastic speech that she just gave.
I have to work on my cousin.
But you know what? People would like it because you know what? We need to reframe the idea of who needs to be in politics. know what politics is
AOC
ultimately about?
definitely like shook
Exactly.
things up.
Politics is about who gets what, in what amount, when, and where. That's really all it is. It's all about dividing resources.
For kids with autism.
Why not you? I'm telling you, folks, flag this episode. It's 2024 now.
I got
it's
things
2024
to do,
now.
Smith.
Let's have a poll. Which office will she win first? Will it be city council, county commission, Florida legislature, or mayor of Orlando?
What is his name? Don't even tell me. Buddy Dyer. That man is going to die being our mayor. Nobody's going to get him out of there. That white man has been around since I was in school.
Rumor has it that he's being considered maybe for a position in the Harris administration.
Really?
That's right. Maybe some seasoning for him because he's thinking about...
So I go straight to mayor.
Why not?
Yeah, I don't know. And then I have to hire you to be part of my cabinet.
What do you think about downtown? What's the one thing you would change about downtown immediately? Downtown's had some issues over the past few years. What would you change about it?
Definitely gun control.
Okay, gun control. Why should things close at 2 a.m.? Why do things close at 2 a.m.?
I have worked downtown. After 2 a.m., nothing good happens.
Right. But if we're talking about, for example, maybe businesses struggling, revenue, things of that nature, not necessarily clubs.
You asked me at the wrong time in my life. You would have asked me this a couple of years back. I would have been like, let's stay up till 4.
Isn't there the 24-hour pizza place here, right? So you do have a space for maybe some restaurants to be able to stay open, not necessarily clubs, right?
Okay.
But even if it was just an additional hour to 3, right? I think in Miami it's open a little bit later, right?
Yeah.
So I guess my point is you have the lived experience that I think would be necessary.
For certain places to open kind of later, or maybe more of a lounge versus a club.
There you go.
But then more security.
Overall, why should people vote? They should vote because by voting, you get involved. But I also think people should not just vote. You should participate and you should consider running. There's no reason why you shouldn't run for office.
He is a media mogul, but he ran for, I believe it was city council in his city. Jason Lee. I don't know what state or what city it was in, but he ran for it and he won. I believe he won.
It's a silly story.
And everyone was like, what the heck? But I just feel like I don't know enough about what's going on locally.
You don't have to know everything. You just have to know that there's some things you want to change and you believe you can. Somewhat of a silly story. Clint Eastwood, still alive. What is he, like 97? Actor? Yeah, the actor, director.
Is he still alive? He must look like a skeleton.
Still around. Clint Eastwood was a mayor of Carmel, California. Did you know that? Do you know why he ran for mayor? Because Carmel had rules concerning when ice cream could be served. And I think they said, no, seriously. And it pissed him off. Yep, they had a rule about when, I think there was one day in a weekend where they didn't serve ice cream. And it so upset him. He said, you know what? I'm going to run to change that.
And he changed it?
He did. He did. And he did a lot of things. And he said, you know, if I'd known how easy it was to do it, I would have done it earlier.
So how come you've never ran? You just like being an attorney?
You know, I'm thinking about it. Honestly, school board. I think for me, I wanted to invest so much time with my kids. But now that they're grown and I have a lot of extra time, I've actually thought about running for local office. Yeah, that's local government to me is my passion because the primary things that affect our lives, roads, schools, child support, exactly, laws, you know, with regard to how the laws operate, but also too, you know, big vibrant things. For example, to me, it's going to be such a relief now to see people's lives no longer ruined by marijuana arrests. It's silly. Marijuana is something that should have been recreational for a long time, and it's going to happen.
Are there, since you are a criminal attorney, are there any cases where marijuana was like alcohol? You know, people drunk kill people, or people on cocaine or meth. Did marijuana cause? Can they say that marijuana caused the people
Not
to do
really.
This?
I mean, you know, I think for every substance that people take that's mind altering, there are times when things happen. But here's the deal. Remember Ferguson, when Michael Brown, when he was killed, he had the riots in Ferguson, and I'll sort of tie it back to the marijuana thing. So after Michael Brown was killed, the Department of Justice did an investigation of Ferguson's law enforcement community, and they produced a report. And the one thing that they were able to find, and this isn't just supposition, they actually found emails between police departments, the sheriffs, and the mayor saying, we're lacking revenue. We need to get money up, start giving people tickets. Start arresting people more, stopping them for speeding, stopping them for minor offenses, because we need to hit them up for these fines. So criminal justice was not being driven by public safety. It was being driven by a need to bridge the gap in revenue. And that's why a lot of people thought, wait a minute, there is racism and discrimination here, but they didn't know behind the scenes it was all financial. That's here in Florida. We don't have a state tax, but yes, we do. It's tolls. It's you being stopped for speeding. It's you being hit up for these things that
when we hear the quote at the end of the month, they have to stop everybody.
Correct. Since the ballot measure actually got on, you've seen now an upsurge in arrest for people possessing marijuana because they know their time is running out. They know they basically have until January to keep trying to hit people up for that.
Do my card because I smell like it all
Get
day.
the card back because
I
now,
I have it. It's got to do.
Yeah. But just think about it though. You use and yet are still a functioning member of society.
But I also know when to use.
Correct.
Like, I guess everything can be abused, just like alcohol. So if alcohol can be legal, then this could be legal.
Of course.
And then there can be laws to say you can't
do
X amount or be completely inebriated.
Let's be honest. Marijuana is associated with certain classes and racial groups in America, and that's why it's been stigmatized. I mean, in fact, it only became an illegal drug as a result of the head of the forerunner to the FBI believing that marijuana was being used by white women to sleep with Jewish and black jazz musicians. That's true. That's a documented fact. He wrote a memo saying, I'm hearing reports that in northern cities and in the South, white women are going to jazz clubs, smoking something known as reefer, and then engaging in interracial sex, which could lead to the mongrelization of the races. Marijuana started off as racist policy. Yes, absolutely. Marijuana was not illegal initially. It was primarily brought to the United States by Mexicans who were smoking it. And then it started becoming popular when you had traveling jazz musicians. Yeah. The first man who was the head of what was called the OSC, it was before the FBI was invented. And he said, hey, we're not going to do this. That's why the FBI went after a lot of jazz musicians like Billie Holiday and others, because they were concerned that they were bringing whites and blacks together under the rubric of jazz music. And, that as a result, you had interracial, sex taking place. Oh, yeah.
Marijuana.
So, and I'm telling you, we need good people, and so that's the final thing I would say. The one thing I know about you is this. You don't have hatred in your heart. You don't have hatred in your heart for anyone, right?
Well, I guess it's not hatred, it's disappointment.
You may have disappointment, but it's based upon what people have done, not because of things like immutable characteristics, who they are, right? I mean, seeing your social media presence and the people that you deal with, you're really just trying to say, hey, look, we've got this short, beautiful life. Let's try to live it and enjoy it. Yeah. And regardless of where you come from, I'm all about coming together with people and trying to have a good, vibrant life.
So where does the money come from for a campaign to run locally?
So I'll give you an example.
I ain't got no more cash. It's gone. My petty cash is being used right now.
Someone like you, I'm sure, would be able to hold fundraisers. You would do it like Barack Obama did and various other things. So no doubt about meetings, dinners, things of that nature. And it's really not that expensive to run for local offices like it is. And you could do like one guy did one time. The whole guy that you see on IG, the guy with the sign who's holding up, that's actually modeled on a guy who ran for office and won. What he started doing is he just would post every day, my name is Jack and I'm running for office. Here are my positions. And it went viral. And then he ended up winning a spot.
I can do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, creative things like that. So it doesn't always take money. I really believe this.
So you're going, when we get off here, you tell me, or if you know now, the position that will help me make a difference in child support.
You need to be a part of the Florida legislature. Okay. You need to be either in the Florida House or the Florida.
Pray about it.
Listen, I not only will you pray about it, I know you're going to do it. And I'm telling you, the night that you win, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to wipe away a little tear. And I'm going to say she's gone from, oh shit, I'm almost 30, to in the legislature.
That would be insane.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like there's so many things in my life, and it's crazy because I just finished reading the book, The Big Leap. Have you read it?
I'm not, but I've heard about it.
Please do. I mean, I think now that you're in the space of your kids are now grown and you're trying to find what to do with your extra time. And it talks about going from, it's a couple different zones, but like the zone of competence to your zone of excellence to your zone of genius. And I feel like I've been operating now for the past couple of years in my zone of excellence. And I can do what I'm doing with my eyes closed. Excellent. The money is coming in and I've been feeling this itch of what's next. I have an idea of something to do next that has to do with consulting. But and of course I just entered the real estate. But I get fulfilled by people and like helping people.
Absolutely.
So the consulting was going to help people in some way, but I need to find out if I get there, how am I going to make some money? I need to make some money. So can I still get brand deals as a Florida legislator?
Absolutely, because it's a part-time job. Remember, the people in the Florida legislature.
But it's not a conflict of interest. I can do Black girl sunscreen and Walmart ads.
You can do all that stuff.
Podcast.
You can do all that stuff. In fact, listen, there are people in the Florida legislature who have full-time law practices.
Okay.
Right? So when you're in the Florida legislature, the only issue is this.
It's kind of like being part of PTA.
That's it.
It's like being, I never did PTA because I didn't like it. But maybe now I could do like a grown PTA. Yeah. Because I just don't like kids.
Well, think about it. Some people might think, wait a minute, how can you be a full-time practicing lawyer?
I do like kids. Sorry.
But then be in the legislature changing laws, right? Mm-hmm. Happens all the time, right? Because the issue is this. As long as you're not directly pushing something that's going to give you a direct financial benefit, yeah, you can be a member.
And how many legislators are there? So
in the Florida House, there are, I want to say it's approximately like about 50.
And so I'm not like the only one running for it.
No.
50.
Yeah, exactly. So it's based upon the districts that we have.
Got it. Yeah. And we're in one of the biggest districts.
One of the biggest. I'm telling you, listen.
That's harder.
Here's what you need to do. Okay. If you think that you can't do it, I encourage you just to watch one time a live hearing of the people in the legislature.
Okay. That's the one that just happened with you're shaped like that.
So that's the U.S. Congress, the built bad butch body. Okay. So see, that's the National Congress. I'm talking about the Florida state legislature.
Okay, so that one's smaller.
Yeah,
but Florida. Is it something like that?
Yeah. Basically,
I like that.
Yeah. Just imagine, take all the mechanisms. So the president, state governor, you have the Congress, we have the Florida legislature.
Okay.
In Congress, you have the House and the Senate. And in Florida, you have the House and the Senate as well, right?
Okay.
And then you go down. Take, for example.
Stop. I get excited about stuff like this. I like to argue with people.
You are going to do it. I have no doubt.
I can legally argue with them.
You can legally argue with them, but you know what else you can do? What you can do is you can finally say, I'm going to be the change that I want to see.
So it's like I'm going to be an attorney without being an attorney.
Absolutely. 100%. You know, the only qualification is that you are a resident. You have the right age. That's it.
What's the age?
So to be in the Florida legislature, I think actually to be in the House, you only have to be 20. Yeah, because remember now to be in
had that young.
That's
young
right.
Black
That's
kid
right. That's right. Yeah, because in the Congress, to be in the Congress, you have to be 25, and then in the Senate, 30. So yeah, you can get there.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we actually spoke about all this stuff. Of course, there's so many other topics within Kamala and Trump, but I feel like we covered enough of why it's important for us to vote that way and some dangerous things about voting red. Because if I'm being completely honest, from what I understand, for me right now, it is financially better to vote Republican.
Well, you know what though? Here's the thing. Some people say that, but if you go back and you look, and this is the truth, if your starting point is 1992 to now, just with regard to 401k performance.
I don't have a 401k.
Get one as soon as possible. The best performance periods for 401ks, Clinton's administration, President Obama's administration.
But what about taxes? Why do I get taxed so high right now where I'm at?
Well, a lot of that has to do with, unfortunately, tax policy is designed to remove most of the burdens in America off the wealthy and place them on the middle class. And for example, when you think of a tax, right? You think of, okay, what I do when I fill out my tax forms, when I put my income and I have to send that off, right? You think about that. But you're taxed in so many ways that you don't think about. For example, have you been on 408 in the last couple of days?
No, but I know that it keeps going up.
We got to think about that as a tax. Let me give you an example of another way in taxing that we don't think about. When you went to get a mortgage loan.
My first one ever, just last week. I can't believe. Did you know my house cost $364,000 was what I paid. It's a 30-year fixed mortgage at 7%, but it's still kind of high. After 30 years of paying exactly my mortgage, I will have paid I won't forget it, $897, $323.
Now, was that based in
$897,323?
Now, was that based in part on your credit score?
Yes.
Okay. Now,
but the lowest we were gonna go, I think it was like 6 something. So 1% wasn't gonna make that much crazy of a difference.
Every little bit adds up, though. Every little bit adds up.
Yes, I'm about to pay
There's
it. I'm
a-
refinancing, but
Mhm.
still.
There's a tax that a lot of women and people of color pay sometimes in the mortgage industry because for the most part, we tend to get higher rates than other people, even when we have the same credit scores.
And mine wasn't even bad.
I know, but like the credit score system, for example, who regulates that?
I don't
Why
know.
Exactly. Why does a private entity get to determine that?
Because they were like, okay, I'm going to try to get it higher to like a 780, somewhere like hella high within the next 7 months to be able, but it's not, it wasn't far off. So I couldn't, but it's their choice.
So you were first time home owner.
Technically,
Technically.
yes. But I don't have a W-2.
Exactly. But here's the thing. Under a plan proposed by VP Harris, if you could show that for 2 years you had paid your rent on time, she was going to give $25,000 for first-time home buyers.
And where does that $25K come from?
That $25K will come from the same place that they use to get money for PPP loans and various things like that, or the same money they use for Ukraine. In other words,
so this will happen if if VP Harris becomes president.
That's right.
And you're paying your rent on time for 2 years.
2 years.
You will be able to buy a home, and she will give you $25,000 for a down payment.
That's a grant. Doesn't have to be paid back exactly because the goal is.
And this is in her stuff.
This is in her stuff. Because real fast, just for time, let me tell you, here are the stats right now. Home ownership in America, white Americans, 74%. Hispanic Americans, 48%. Asian Americans, 62%. The lowest, Black Americans, 45%. For median wealth, 2024, Asian American households, $536,000 median wealth. Whites, $285,000.
What?
Hispanics, $61,000. Black Americans, $44,000. The median income for Black households in the United States is 32% lower than that of whites. For Hispanics, it's about the same. The biggest reason I would say for her is because she actually identifies this as an issue, knows that there is a wealth gap between Hispanics and Blacks and whites, and has programs like this, home ownership. The way you become wealthy in the United States, hit the lotto, generational wealth, or home ownership. And this is what's unique and cool about her policies. She knows that she can't come out and say, hey, I want to get more Black people in Hispanics homes, but she knows a program like that will disproportionately benefit people who are lacking in home ownership. So it's the universal program that, once again, helps erase these things and helps promote all people.
Okay. Well, we're recording this, what is it today? September 6th?
September 6th.
September 6th. We literally have 2 months left, exactly, almost, until we have to vote. I hope that whatever happens in our vote makes some type of difference. I will be honest and say, I don't know what it is about Kamala. I brought you on because I knew you have a wealth of knowledge. I've been listening to different pods because I don't want to make it misinformed.
Right.
Truly, I just want to vote because she's a woman and she's a Black woman.
Yeah.
A woman of color. She's Indian and Black. In my heart, in my like ignorance, I just want to do it because seeing her makes me feel like I can do literally anything. Like I look at her and I'm like, I can be president. That's
not ignorant. That's not ignorant. Let me tell you why. Representation matters, and I'll tell you why.
I never understood. Even with Obama, I didn't feel represented.
Understand?
Like it didn't feel like it felt dope to see a Black. Like that really felt good. But I didn't feel me like this is the first time that this is the first time I understand those little girls when they see a Disney doll they see Tiana. I've never felt what I felt, and my friend was laughing at me because I was watching the DNC, and every time she talks, I start crying. I just start crying, and it's just, I guess that's what they mean by representation matters. I never felt it.
There's a value, and it's inspirational in ways that people don't think about. You're too young to know the show. There's a show called LA Law. And Blair Underwood, he was a Black lawyer on the show. And that show was out when I was 17, 18. And I remember looking and saying, you know what? I want to be a lawyer like him, like Blair Underwood. Wow. There was another guy who was watching that show. He's an agent named Carter King, African-American agent who produced shows like Mudbound, Judas and the Black Messiah. He's also an agent for Oprah, Tyler Perry, and all these other people. Most prominent, unfortunately, not too well known African-American agent. He said, seeing Blair Underwood there inspired me because I wanted to do this. And now he has Mosaic, which is his entertainment company. Representation matters. And it may not be you, but there's going to be someone out there. Like you said, the resonance with Obama is not there because he's a man.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the value that being a woman, it's not just the biology or the genes, it's the experience. Because there are things that women have had to deal with and think about that men don't think about. Something even as simple as corporations started realizing, you know what? Flex time. Flex time didn't come in until women started saying, guys, the 9-to-5 thing doesn't work. Do you know that kids get out of school at this time? Because men don't think about it, right? The childcare thing. There are things that women have had to think about because of their experiences that men don't have to think about. And so the representation is important, but it's also too, biology sometimes creates experiences for you that shape how you view the world and what you'll do for other people.
Yeah, I still, even when I watched, oh my God, I don't know her name. The president, the female that was trying to run in Venezuela, that ended up having to get the guy to run instead, that she was behind him. Do you know what I'm talking about, Viv? You don't know her name? But anyway, even watching her in Venezuela, I'm not attached to. I mean, I have Venezuelan friends, but just there's something about Kamala that I just told my friend, I was like, I just feel like I can be a billionaire.
Yeah.
I feel like I can knock off Elon Musk. I don't know how, but she makes me feel like she walks out and she talks. So maybe there is something to what you're saying to me, or another seed or another point of it. Maybe I don't know.
I have no doubt. Like I said, folks, remember this: when she gets into an elected position, even if it's something, like I said, like a local thing, like a county board or whatever.
And I know I already know that Alicia, if I did it the right way, she'd be like, I will help you.
Alicia, why were we thinking about her at the same time?
Really?
Alicia, I literally
don't know why Alicia doesn't run. I mean, she got 3 kids. So it's a lot in her own law firm. So her time is more constrained, but I would love to see her.
The gap between where we are as a nation and where we want to be is going to be filled by people like you and Alicia Adamson and others.
She's so good.
100%.
I'm going to bring her back.
She should be the chief judge. She should be the chief judge. 100%. She should be on the bench and be the chief judge. She wants to. And you know why? Because good people, good and competent people.
She's such a good person.
I just want good people. Okay. Because you know what? Good people will bring in the technicians and the people who know the things, but good, decent people. Good, decent people.
What are you going to run for, Viv? City council. We're going to run for stuff? Let's just go in there and tear shit up.
Yeah. There you go. There you go.
I like it. Well, James, thank you so much for this.
Hey, it was my pleasure. Absolutely, 100%.
Right before it comes up, if something big happens, I would love to even just come in real quick and do a fast turnaround right on time to talk about what we're doing. I feel like maybe I'm at that age where things just matter a little bit more than when I was 18.
My pleasure. Can I say one final thing? Guys, if you're going to watch the debate next week, watch it on C-SPAN. Don't watch it on the networks where you have all the filtering and so forth. Form your own opinions.
C-SPAN?
Yeah, so C-SPAN, it's the governmental organization, unfiltered. You get a chance to watch it from start to finish. Just watch it that way. So I believe the debate is September 10th. Okay. I think it is, yeah. So just watch it that way.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for being here. And
thanks.
He's going to be our resident smart person to come in here.
resident nerd.
Yes. I like nerds. So I think I'm a nerd too, but just in other ways.
Hey, it was my pleasure.
I'll see you guys next week. Thank you for being here. And every which way that you can reach him, whether it's because you got in trouble like me, or you want to reach out and listen to his podcast. It was Trace Table.
That's right.
Trace Table everywhere.
Everywhere.
All righty. I'll bring him back on. There's something I want to. Never mind. Goodbye. Shut up.